Imagine the sound of a church bell echoing across a cobblestoned village square. It's dawn, the year is 1325. Smoke rises from thatched rooftops as bakers knead dough and merchants set up their stalls. But inside nearly every household, one thing is certain today: meat is off the menu. The people of this medieval town are preparing for Friday, a day of fish, fasting, and faith. But why fish? Why did this single food dominate the end of every medieval week? In the medieval world, religion didn't simply guide prayers, it dictated the rhythm of life. The Catholic Church held immense influence over people's diets, prescribing days of fasting and abstinence from meat. Fridays were sacred, a weekly commemoration of Christ's crucifixion. Church teaching declared that avoiding warm, blooded flesh was a form of penance, a small sacrifice to remember a much greater one. But here's the twist: fish, being cold-blooded, was not considered meat. That single loophole opened an entire culinary universe. Picture a medieval marketplace on a Thursday afternoon. The air smells of brine and seaweed as fishmongers shout their offers. Barrels of salted cod, baskets of freshwater eels, and slabs of smoked herring change hands at a furious pace. Wealthy townsfolk rush to secure the best catches, while peasants and servants wait for leftovers. This Thursday frenzy was not coincidence, it was preparation for Friday's meal. Across Europe, entire regional economies grew around the predictable surge in fish demand every week. But why did the Church draw such a sharp line between fish and meat? Medieval scholars believed the body's humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, could be stirred differently by foods. Warm-blooded animals were thought to inflame passions and physical desire, whereas fish was seen as cooling, calming, and spiritually pure. Whether or not this was true, it became deeply ingrained doctrine. To eat meat on a Friday without dispensation was a serious sin. Penalties ranged from public penance to fines, depending on the era. The effect of this rule went far beyond kitchen. Monasteries built sprawling fish ponds to ensure steady supplies. Lords constructed artificial lakes stocked with carp and pike. In coastal towns, entire guilds of fishermen and merchants thrived. Salted cod from the North Atlantic, dried herring from the Baltic, and eels from English rivers became commodities, traded across Christendom. This weekly ritual of abstinence helped weave together a pan-European market centuries before the idea of the European Union. Inside the great halls of nobles, Fish Fridays took on a ceremonial air. Long tables groaned under platters of spiced lamprey, baked salmon pies, and fish stews thickened with almonds. Sauces of saffron, vinegar, and verjuice masked the salty tang of preserved fish. Even on fasting days, the wealthy found ways to turn abstinence into spectacle. For the poor, Friday meals were simpler. Perhaps a thin pottage flavored with herring or dried stockfish, or if they were lucky, a small freshwater catch from a nearby stream. And there was more than just Friday. Lent, the 40 days before Easter, demanded even stricter fasting, banning meat entirely. This expanded the fish market dramatically. The Baltic herring trade boomed, Icelandic cod fed thousands of monasteries and parishes. The church calendar, with its constellation of saints' days and fasts, ensured a constant rhythm of restriction and indulgence, all of it shaping medieval diets in ways modern people rarely imagine. But what about the taste? To modern palates, medieval fish might have been challenging. Preservation relied on heavy salting and air drying. Cooking methods tried to soften the texture and mask the saltiness. Soaking, boiling with herbs, or frying in oil. Spices from the East, like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves, were prized for making preserved fish more palatable. The wealthy could afford these imports, the poor largely went without. This disparity in taste mirrored the larger inequalities of medieval society, even under the shared discipline of Friday fasting. Some medieval thinkers pushed back against the rigidity. Did God really care whether one ate fish or meat? Debates occasionally flared within theological circles, but the rule held firm for centuries. It was only with the Reformation, beginning in the 16th century, that the grip of the Catholic dietary calendar began to loosen. Protestant regions often abandoned mandatory fasting days. Yet even then, the centuries-old tradition of fish on Fridays lingered culturally, especially in Catholic countries and communities. Now imagine the ripple effect on European exploration. The high demand for preserved fish spurred advances in fishing technology and shipbuilding. Sailors ventured further into the Atlantic to catch cod off Newfoundland long before permanent settlements were founded. These expeditions, partly driven by religious dietary rules, helped lay the groundwork for transatlantic contact and commerce. In a roundabout way, Friday fish may have helped shape global history. The symbolism ran deep, too. In Christian iconography, the fish had always been a sacred sign, from the early ichthys symbol to Christ calling his apostles fishers of men. Eating fish on holy days reinforced that connection between the believer and sacred tradition. Each bite was not just nutrition but also devotion, an edible reminder of faith. Yet despite the solemnity, human nature found its loopholes. Wealthy elites sometimes petitioned for dispensations to eat meat on forbidden days, often in exchange for donations or political favors. Some tried to classify other creatures as fish to get around the ban. The medieval church eventually allowed beavers and certain aquatic birds to be treated as fish for fasting purposes because they lived partly in water. A ruling that today seems almost comical but reflects the flexibility of medieval casuistry. Fast forward to a modern Friday in a small European town. The church bell still tolls. In a corner restaurant, the special of the day is fried cod. Many customers don't think twice about the origin of this tradition, but its roots run directly back to medieval discipline. Even McDonald's Filet-O fish sandwich exists largely because of this centuries-old habit. What started as a weekly act of penance became a cultural norm, and then a commercial opportunity. And why does this matter to us now? Because it shows how belief systems shape economies, diets, and daily habits for generations. The rule about Friday fish wasn't just a religious footnote. It was a powerful force that shaped markets, exploration, and even our modern menu. Without it, perhaps the fishing towns of the North Sea would never have flourished, or transatlantic voyages might have come later, or the global spice trade might have developed differently. Picture once more that medieval household at dawn. A mother lays out bread, peas, and a pot of pottage flavored with dried herring. Children whisper a prayer before eating. Outside, the bell tolls again, echoing across a Europe bound together by a shared rhythm of fasting and feasting. Fish on Friday isn't just a meal. It's a window into the medieval mind, a ritual linking the ordinary to the sacred, the earthly to the eternal. And even though centuries have passed, the echo of that tradition remains. Whether it's a Friday fish fry in the American Midwest or a quiet seafood dinner in Spain, the practice survives as a cultural echo of a time when the church's calendar governed the table as much as the soul. So next time you see a plate of fish on a Friday, remember, you're witnessing the living memory of medieval Europe, a taste of faith, history, and tradition served on a simple plate.